India's growth story. Where can you put this article? Good. See, immediately when you see an article, the first thing that you should be asking is, to which part of the syllabus can I tag this to? That is your first success in determining what is important for your exam. And the prerequisite for doing that is, yes, by hiding the syllabus. Are you on it? Reminding you once again. Okay. Interstate rivalry that is fueling India's growth. What do you understand by this? I will not get into the details of this article. Let's try to predict the content. What do you think will be there in this? Competition among states to attract investments. Is there any governing body or a guiding principle or a policy body that is helping the states? Competitive federalism is the principle of Niti Aayog. Perfect. Now, if you go back to the traditional textbook, Lakshmikant, if you read the Niti Aayog chapter, what are the principles that guide a Niti Aayog? Can you think of it? Can you recollect? Definitely, competitive federalism is one of that point. But did you even think of Niti Aayog in this context? If let's once try to go to Niti Aayog website once. How many of you ever visited this site? Did you ever visit this site? See, what are the headings there? Now, is the article about this or this? Competitive federalism. Let's open and see what these programs are all about. It endeavors to promote competitive federalism by facilitating improved performance of states. It encourages healthy competition among states through transparent rankings in various sectors. Hand-holding approach. There are some indices which are launched: school education, state health, water management, sustainable goals, innovation, export competitiveness. These are some of the metrics which will empower the states. Now, if a state is supposed to generate wealth, often the complaint is that they don't have enough taxation powers. You need to realize that investments create a virtuous cycle and they themselves will indirectly increase the GST collections in a state. Ultimately, every state will get its own GST share. That is the indirect taxation impact. If you take a look at any of these metrics that Niti Aayog is focusing on, do you see anything that has got to do with finance? School, state health, composite water management index, SDGs, India Innovation Index, export competitiveness index. What is Niti Aayog doing here? It is just evaluating, giving suggestions on where a particular state can improve. That's all. It has got nothing to do with putting money in the hands of the state government. So it is more like a think tank. If you take a look at the website here, read the About Us section, and what does it say? It's the same thing again. It came back to the same thing. If you take a look at the cooperative federalism, what does it do? What is the difference between competitive and cooperative? It is important to know this point. Read this. Number of steps have been taken by Niti Aayog through structured support. There is minister cabinet ministers meeting. And apart from this, they are sharing best practices, policy support, capacity development of states. Focus on this point. Capacity development, launching of aspirational districts, theme based extensive engagements in various sectors. Basically, it is all about knowledge sharing. And the same thing is mentioned in the article also. See this. I'll get back to the article, but look at the conclusion. In just 3 decades, India moved from permission based economy to a persuasion based one. States no longer queue for Delhi's patronage. They campaign with CEOs, investors, and pitching their case with confidence. This is a transformation of mindset. Finally, they say that states are learning from each other. Each success strengthens supply chains, builds skills, deepens India's industrial fabric. The bottom line, in the race for investment, every state that wins for itself is also winning for India. I want you to just verbatim copy this line. It's a beautiful line. You can use this in any economic federalism based question. Each success strengthens X and deepens India's Y. This format of conclusion you can verbatim copy and use it. Each success strengthens supply chains, builds skills, deepens India's industrial fabric. You can replace this with some social metric also. Just look at the conclusion. Are you following me? Each win for the state in X will help India in Y. Fill in the blanks, X and Y. This is the template that you can use in your answer, mains conclusions. Okay? In this context, it is even more better. In the race for investment, in the race for development, in the race for innovation, in the race for social inclusion, anything that you can think of, every state that succeeds also wins for India. You are essentially capturing the spirit of Article 1. What is Article 1? India, that is Bharat, is a union of states, not a federation. Okay? Please use this for your conclusions. Now, what is this article talking about? You already understood the gist. Let's see some case studies here as a value addition. If you see how states were perceived in the developmental agenda of this country, we will divide the history before 91, after 91. Before 1991, it is a controlled economy. And no investor is willing to come because the gatekeeper itself is not allowing. Too much regulation, license Raj. After the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, globalization, that transformed into a competitive base. But the problem is there is no, incentive for companies to come to one state over the other. So this is when some states took initiative. It is Karnataka's IT policy that started the IT revolution in Mysore and Bangalore, Infosys, for example. Same thing happened with the government of Andhra Pradesh in 2000, and other states followed. Whether it is the Uttar Pradesh government in Noida or Haryana government in Gurugram or Delhi, the NCR region, it became an economic hub. Apart from this, you also had the historical cities like Mumbai, which have the legacy of being the financial hubs. So, due to various factors and the impetus given to urbanization, many states started generating more revenue, not in terms of taxation, but in terms of the GDP they contribute to this nation. So, each state came up with its own, unique ability. Let's say, for example, if you want to promote Noida, there are some slogans. Let's say, if you want to emulate the Shenzhen model of China, where industrial manufacturing is, very famous. Every household was in one way or the other a cottage industry that was into manufacturing. People were skilled enough to produce something or the other. That's how China started growing. Noida wants to pitch itself as the next industrial hub. So locally, when this business meetings are happening, the government is giving push to the entrepreneurs in Noida to promote themselves as representatives of Shenzhen of India. Similarly, if you take a look at the innovation R&D labs, whether it is in biotech or software, you will see the pitch from Bangalore. Hyderabad is also coming up with a pitch of its own, being the data center hub, business friendly environment, infrastructure led growth. Every city is coming up with their own marketing slogans and competing for investor confidence. But at the heart of this, you have to attribute some success to Niti Aayog. Because the spirit of competition and a movement away from this patronage kind of a culture where you treat states like incapable children rather than partners in development, that changed ever since 2014. A top-down approach that the Planning Commission followed was replaced by the bottom-up approach. If you want to say that how can someone from the Delhi, from the central level, how are they, creating this environment of competition? As a case study, you can quote the Aspirational Districts program. What happened in the Aspirational Districts program? Anyone? There were some cluster of villages, extremely backward villages, which were right from the word go. They're named as aspirational districts. Very perception is changed on how the state governments are forced to view those districts. So you have to act right from the perception till the last mile service delivery. At every stage, Niti Aayog was holding hand. And if you go to the website, you will see some, one second. You will see some best practices PDFs too. And also you will have different sectors and insights from this. Of course, you can't read all these lengthy documents, extremely lengthy. But most of them will be covered in some magazine or the other. So you can go through those documents yourself. That compilations from different magazines, you can cover them. Okay, take a look at these themes, and most likely you will be getting insights from these reports only as questions. Okay, Niti Aayog as well as economic survey as well as the government reports. Each individual ministry, for example, internal security, Ministry of Home Affairs, disaster management, again NDMP. So the annual reports, etc., PIB yearly releases, they're a very good source of extracting themes and predict the questions. And that's how I do. Mostly, every time you've been a part of this mentorship programs, you've known, I've already shared the details. Almost in the last 3 years, we were able to predict 20 or 19 questions in GS3 using the same approach. If you consistently follow the developments of PIB, newspapers, etc., you will understand the nuance of how you can predict a question. We will be covering them in our current affair modules, don't worry about it. But you need to time and again visit this website just to have an idea of what are the ongoing developments and what examples you can pick up. In this article also, if you see here, experience in other federations. See, every state will have its own competence. For example, Vedanta and Foxconn announced their semiconductor joint venture. Maharashtra and Gujarat were competing. And then Tamil Nadu and Telangana wanted EV manufacturing. And this is not just unique to India. Even in US, the same thing happens. Germany, same thing happens. Australia and Canada, same thing happens. And it's good that competition is pushing the Indian states to perform better. So you need to take these examples, understand the principles of Niti Aayog, understand what is Niti Aayog's contribution. It's just indirectly creating a level playing ground to empower states to have skilled professionals. And each state is banking on their own competency. Whether it is, for example, say the EV manufacturing ecosystem in Tamil Nadu or the port ecosystem in Mumbai. They are the best in what they do. It doesn't mean other states doesn't have that same capability, but they are the representatives of that category. They project themselves as the best possible alternative for that respective sector. India needs to have a spillover effect from states. And the only way that can happen is through competition. This is the gist of the article. Please note down the conclusion. I really like this. Maybe if you can use it somewhere. Fine-tune the AI labeling regulations framework. What is this about? The other day we were talking about the approach of government to regulate AI. We were talking about the sandbox approach where we don't want to look at this technology with suspicion. We are looking at the possibility of some innovative technology, some innovative practices that can create opportunities, economic opportunities, new jobs, a structural shift in our service sector. Not just service sector, it can happen in any sector. At this point of time, two contradictory things are happening. This is not relevant in our present discussion, but I want you to know this because it will help you understand the complicated nature of this entire issue. Let's take a step back and see the evolution of this AI technology. For many months, the only AI technology that we knew was OpenAI's ChatGPT. Initially, this was supposed to be a not-for-profit organization, but later it was acquired by Microsoft. How do you think ChatGPT got its training data? From the publicly hosted resources. Now, the other day in Europe, if I'm not wrong, somewhere in Europe or US, in either of this, it's not important what the judgment is. Let's understand the gist of it. Someone filed a case saying that this AI generated images are almost like my replicas. He's an artist. So the court ruled that training an AI model is not the same as copyright. So essentially, even though the artist knows that all the data is trained on his paintings, there's nothing he can do about it. Is there anything problematic about this ruling? It's not a copyright according to the court. It is not copying exact thing, it is generating, it is learning. I'll give you a similar example from Another judgment in a completely unrelated case. A student in Delhi University took a textbook from the library and got a photocopy of that, and the publisher of the book filed a copyright saying that this is a violation of my privacy or my intellectual property. The court ruled that when you are learning, it is okay. You cannot deny access to learning. So this gave an impetus for the people to open up more Xerox shops or the photocopy shops. It actually happened. You know, being a UPSC aspirant, the impact of piracy and the ubiquitous nature of the pirated materials on the streets of old Rajendra Nagar or Ashok Nagar or whatever center you're preparing from. And there's nothing that the original creators can do anything about it, except maybe use them as promotional materials. And now, a student who is refusing to pay up for genuine material will believe that that is the material, right? So, in an age where AI can generate so much content, what is the incentive for the original creator? Nothing much. We are not just looking at the regulations from the government standpoint. We are looking at it from a 360-degree view. So, when the courts give such kind of a judgment favoring the tech companies, original creators and original thinking will diminish. At this point of time, your AI model has access to the entire collective knowledge of humanity, but it will stagnate there if there is no incentive for original thinking. Can AI generate new content? When you say generative AI, it cannot produce anything new. It is just playing around with the words that are created by someone. So while it might feel like something new, it is not. It is just reusing the permutations and the combinations of the old data that is fed to the system. So the word generative AI can sometimes be misleading when it is explained to a common man. They tend to believe that it is producing new knowledge. No, it is just predicting the next pattern that you are expecting from them. So let's say if a new creator, like let's say Da Vinci, who's a very talented person, do you think he'll have an incentive to think so much and express himself when he'll just be copied? Maybe yes, if that makes him happy. But somebody should commercialize the intellectual property, right? Otherwise, it's difficult to survive. So, in a environment where it has both positives and negatives, we are only concerned about the issues like deep fakes, misinformation, propaganda, because those are the urgent things that we need to address. A case to the point being, a businessman lost 66 lakhs because of a deep fake. So obviously the stakeholders are interested in regulating that aspect, but nobody is in a frame of mind to think of the long-term prospects. And this is where the trajectory of human history is going to alter. Without we realizing, our attention spans are falling. How many of you are now directly giving a very bulky article to AI and asking summarize it? How many of you are guilty of this? When you don't have time, how will you grab the nuance? It's happening. AI's wide adoption is reducing the attention span. It is reducing the ability to think. Critical thinking is getting stagnated. You just blindly accept whatever is given without questioning it. Your ability to proofread is also coming down because it's very tiring. If I ask for a summary of 1,000 page, it is still giving me 100 pages. How much can it condense? Even if it is 10 pages, by the time you arrive at the 10th page, because you are continuously engaging with AI, you are tired to read the output. This is not my opinion. This is what the journals are saying. What does that leave us with? Where is humanity heading? It is in this context, AI regulations become much more important. This article is probably talking about AI regulations and fine-tuning them only from a standpoint of cybersecurity. It is talking about various tiers in which AI content should be labeled. Completely AI generated, AI assisted, AI led. This kind of segmentations are suggested by the author. If a video is completely generated by AI, you need to inform the user, put some kind of a label here and there. But a premium subscription is all you need to remove that label. How will you stop this nonsense? You simply can't figure out a way to distinguish between something that is genuine and something that is AI generated. On the top of this, we are also yet to witness the arrival of a new technology. What is that? VR headsets. Imagine VR headsets combined with generative AI sitting in front of you. You're addicted to that. You just stare at a blank wall all your day and you're entertained. And your dopamine tolerance is going to be horrible. You just want, at least now you can watch a 30-second reel. Now you want a constant stimulation. Something will be going on and you don't know what is happening. I'm not talking about a dystopian world. It takes self-awareness to see what is happening to us. And since you are preparing for this kind of an exam, you need to be aware of this change in trajectory. Observe not just your own behavior, but also what is happening to the world outside. All right. Am I talking about something science fiction or something happening to you? So, if it is happening to you, someone who is preparing for the exam, who has a lot of context to what this discussion is all about, imagine the plight of common people. They're just not aware of what's happening to them. The next AI development will probably be not in the direction of super intelligence, but my prediction is that it will enter into entertainment domain. The next branch of AI will be in the entertainment domain, where a TikTok of sorts, completely driven by AI, will be consumed by human throughout the day until something disruptive comes and puts them back on track. They'll be distracted for a few years. I hope it's not decades. And then they'll come back to what they should be doing. Because why am I going in that direction? Because with this present kind of valuations, which is where I'm talking about, with this present valuations where, let's say, OpenAI is partnering with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is selling a chip to OpenAI and says, I am making $500. Let's say, for example. OpenAI says that I am procuring this from NVIDIA and I'm making some more money, which is again given to NVIDIA only. So it's like a circular economy. One company is transferring cash to another. I gave you that example long time ago, where a tourist came to a hotel. Somebody might not be aware of this example, but I'll give it again anyway. A tourist came to a hotel and wanted to check out if the room is good enough. He'll put a 100 rupee note as an advance and goes and checks the room, and he wants to see if everything is fine. By the time the tourist takes a look at the hotel room, as he's going upstairs, this owner will run and give that 100 rupee note to maid as a salary, because he was not getting enough sales. That maid will take that 100 rupee note and move to the shopkeeper because she was supposed to owe. And the same thing will pass on from hand to hand. And finally, one person who is supposed to give money back to the hotel owner will bring that money to him and say that I cleared your loan. And the tourist comes down and says that I didn't like the room, I want my refund. He'll give the 100 rupee note back to the tourist. Essentially, everybody's loan is cleared, but nobody earned anything. This is what is happening in AI now. So, is AI the future? Hell yes. But just like the dot-com bubble, even AI is under a bubble because the valuations of these companies are increasing in such a short span that nobody is able to justify. When you spend 1 trillion and only get 1 billion, it just doesn't add up. So if AI is to justify its valuations in the short span, you're going to adopt it at such a scale which is practically impossible now, given that all the data centers need power generation. Unless you figure out the power problem, AI as a theme in making wealth or money is impossible. So anyone who is willing to make wealth in this present scenario should be focused on electricity generation sector, not AI. First invest here. The bubble will anyway be burst on some day. Then you come back and invest it. How is it related to these regulations? You might be wondering. These regulations are all aimed at amplifying the scope of AI adoption. If you essentially go in the direction of promoting individual rights, AI's growth will stop. And you have national governments like US investing in these companies, which is a conflict of interest. If something happens now, there is a possibility that US economy will go bust. On the top of this, there is one more news. The Supreme Court of US feels that the law under which Trump is imposing tariffs is illegal, probably. If that is ruled in favor of the country, that is US or importers, Trump's administration owes as much as $750 billion in the last 3 months. That will essentially stop their entire fiscal program for the next 1 year. You know, US government was shut down for almost 40-45 days because they were not able to give salaries. So much for all the hype that he gave when he came to the power. All these regulations are going to impact AI generation, money generation in the AI sector. So, as a responsible government, it is important to bring this so-called valuations of the companies and the money that is going into it and the time period of repayment and how the stocks are getting inflated also into the regulatory scope. Have an umbrella organization where legal, technical, financial heads, let's say SEBI, Law Ministry, RBI, all this empowered panel should be there in AI regulation. Data security, data privacy, models, regulations, all these are a teeny tiny bit of the regulatory space only. There is so much more because unlike any other technology that we have seen before, this is transformational. And if something happens in the global economy now, it's going to take a lot of jobs. Economies are going to be shattered and will remain like that for a very long time. So the world is watching. We are not denying the value that AI can bring. But can it bring that kind of value in such a short span? That's a question. So there is a need for all this investors to slow down because all of that is happening at the cost of public money. Whereas the US pumping money from? Obviously from the taxpayers' money. And that's the scary scenario. If something happens to the global markets, everything is about money. Regulations are also linked to money. So when you are talking about AI regulations, don't just stop at law, data security, deepfakes. Think beyond this. Bring all of these aspects also into the regulatory scope. Are you following me? Great. So we don't have an article yet which is talking about the role of SEBI in understanding the investments that are flowing into this data center stocks, IT stocks, etc. Because ultimately it's about economy. Anyone who's interested in the economic side will also have to take care of the policy environment. Right? So most of our policies are reactive in nature, not proactive. So I'm giving you. This is one of the theme in the overall AI regulation, where you are supposed to take care of the gullible consumers. But there are so many other themes within this which you need to focus on. All right. Okay. Moving on. The limits of international branch campuses, I think we have already discussed. What is the context here? Let's say the context is British Prime Minister came to India. Long story short, UK universities are not making money, so they want to open a branch in India. The debate is, will Indians treat it like, say, a London School of Economics? There is a difference, right? An Indian branch and an original. If they are going to replicate the same thing here, the original one will lose its value. So obviously the quality will be much lesser than this. And why should we allow UK to make more money when it is not adding any value to us? So this is the conundrum. Should we allow a foreign university and glorify this Western label, or try to create that partnership with the expertise of the West to create an Indian university with collaboration? This is the debate. Okay? Nothing much to take away from this article. Long story short, it is not so useful for Indians in the long run. 3 out of 4 Indians believe climate change is affecting them. Obviously, you can read this as a data pointer. About 35% of Indians were willing to make a lot of lifestyle changes even when believed climate change is not affecting the area they live in. This is the second highest share among the countries surveyed. So if anyone tells us that, or if you ever find any Western media lecturing us on consumerism or how to live a sustainable lifestyle, show them this statistic. Okay? And do you see US anywhere in this country? I mean, in this list? Unlikely. Okay. Why does India's road safety system keep failing? Do you need a very detailed answer? What is your intuition? What is your intuition? Like, why do they keep failing? Profit orientation, contractors, corruption. What else? Civic sense. It begins with us. We can all blame the governments later. See, I am not aloof from this system. We are all part of this only. We can shamelessly accept our own responsibilities first before we proceed to blame the governments. It starts with us most of the times. How does corruption start? Because you're trying to break a rule and then bribe the constable to get away, or call your influential uncle and get out of the situation. It starts with us. Okay. Now that I gave you the moral lecture, let's write the answer that UPSC expects from us. What is the reason why India's road safety system keeps failing? Same thing, you already told the answer. Corruption, system is bad, designs are bad, no regulation, no enforcement. You know it, you will write very well. If you don't, you can read this. What is the role of enforcement? Speeding, overloading, lane violations, driving under influence remains among the top causes of fatal crash. What can the government do when you don't have civic sense? Okay. So just go back and read this article. This upcoming article is a very beautiful one. How grassroots movement and campaigns are shaping in India. See, basically, from this article, you can pick up examples for your essay and ethics. In sociology, social movements as catalysts for social change. It's a very important thing. Not just sociology optional, but also in Indian society. Let's say, if you are using these stories as representatives of resilience, despite having so many things against them, these stories talk about how, despite the state's negligence, there were people socially organizing themselves, skilling themselves, and it talks about examples like Mr. Bakchi, who went on to become one of the topmost executive in a company like Biocon. You also have some other examples like Muni Tigga, etc., a tribal woman who trained herself through the help of the social organizations and went on to become a loco pilot. So it represents the hope and a belief in the capacities of people and dismantles all kinds of social stereotypes that maybe people from this specific region are incapable of doing something. And it's important that we celebrate stories like this because they give a hope. So pick up these examples. You can go through this. There's nothing much to explain. The reason why I wanted to highlight this is you should know where to tag this article, what value you can pick up from this, and what examples you can use. It's not important to take the names of these books. I'm not interested in the book names. Just take the examples. What those books talk about, the theme of that book, the central idea of that book, and some specific examples in the article so that you can use them in your ethics and essay. Okay? That's it for the day. See you tomorrow.